All right. That's my audio real quick. Sorry, the stream got a little delayed getting it set up here. Just test audio. Come on. Test, test. All right, I hear it. Let me know if anything sounds weird in the chat. The mic cord just got kind of shoved up. Hold on. All right, that's better. That should be better. Let me know if there's any audio issues. Hi, Bauer. How's it going? It's been a while. I feel like our community that we've been building for over a year now is kind of like strangers since we haven't had much weather in the last probably month or so. A couple times we were really close to going live with some smaller scale events, and just either timing wasn't quite right or just died off really quick, and we just didn't go live. And then there were a couple times, including the last weekend here with the severe storms in the Northeast, where I just had some prior engagements already planned over a month out, where live streaming wasn't going to be probably doable anyway, unless there was like some major category 5 hurricane hitting somewhere. Luckily we didn't have anything like that. So though, but still in a normal kind of time frame, I would have been on for the Boston and Northeast severe weather over the weekend. But anyway, getting back in it, we do have a pretty active severe weather day, a little more active than the models actually showed earlier today. So models showed just maybe 1-2 supercells. We've had actually a handful of supercells. They're mostly south moving, southeast moving. There's one up here in Kansas still. Let's see. Over here between Meade and Greensburg, Kansas. We actually have a shot of that storm. Let me grab that one. This is the look of it here. It's starting to move into the picture of this camera here at Meade, looking to the east. So you can see a little bit of an inflow cloud right here on the horizon line. A little tail cloud kind of showing up here just along the horizon. And then it's pretty humid and muggy outside, but there is kind of behind, basically straight ahead, that is the base of the storm. And then a little bit of the blow off we're seeing here from just on top of the screen. So a little bit of structure we can see from this camera. It's not the highest quality camera, and it's not the best positioned. It's really low to the ground. So we're not getting a really great look at it, but at least it's super flat out here in Kansas. So we can at least get some structure out of that one. There's a couple other cameras around. These storms right now are not in a very tech covered area, so we're a little limited on the cameras, but we'll get those when we do. We do have a little more cameras if they do slide down towards the I-40 corridor. So we'll see about that one. There was a main supercell, kind of came out of Kansas. It was originally a southeast moving supercell and kind of turned as it was crossing the Kansas-Oklahoma border. That supercell did produce at least a brief kind of stovepipey tornado earlier, still being warned here around Laverne, Roston, and Log Cabin Corner. This supercell has had big hail through its life. It's now up to apple-size hail. So we do have a destructive severe thunderstorm with apple-size hail, 80-mile-an-hour winds, and still an embedded tornado potential. Still some rotation showing up in here, basically riding along Highway 283, probably just west of 283 and the areas here around Laverne. That's where we have, looks like our highest level area of rotation. We can see these winds here in the oranges and reds. It's going away from the radar, and then kind of broader bright greens going towards the radar. Our radar is out of Garden City, Kansas here up to the north. So still seeing broad rotation in here. Not as tight as it was earlier when it was a tornado producing severe thunderstorm. But again, some of this rear flank downdraft, that's going to produce some 80-mile-an-hour winds and potentially here some pretty strong winds over Laverne, Oklahoma. We can scope these just a little bit here. Let's just take a look here at the wind profile. Probably 50, 60 coming through Laverne. And then if we do have 80-mile-an-hour winds, it's probably in the rear flank here with, we're getting a little further from the radar site. So it's going to be a little bit harder to see exactly where those highest winds are. Maybe even right here, just on the inflow jet right in here. So yeah, there's definitely some pretty punchy winds in here, but it's going to be basically in this little hook and then on the wraparound here. Again, south moving supercells are a little less tornadic in general. But this one has produced at least one, if not two, tornadoes in its life cycle. So we'll continue to watch that again. Laverne, Log Cabin Corner, anywhere down along Highway 283 in Oklahoma. This is in the far western part of Oklahoma, basically the Oklahoma Panhandle. Oh, I know. It's been so cold. It's just, yeah, I feel like we're strangers. We just haven't had a big severe weather event. And I mean, luckily, in quite a while, in about a month, it's just been kind of locked into a fall-like atmosphere. Isaiah, you're out of Minneapolis, right? You're in the Twin Cities area. I think, did you guys have freeze warnings or frost warnings the other morning? Hey, Bauer, how's it going? Hope all is well. Yeah, it's a little, I mean, even for Minneapolis, it's a little cold. It's a little too early for those freeze and frost warnings. I think there's more in maybe northern Minnesota into Ontario this overnight tonight too. But yeah, a little bit of severe weather here. This is in the Oklahoma Panhandle, southwest Kansas, and then also parts of the Texas Panhandle. Severe thunderstorm watch for large hail is the main threat, potentially over 2.5 inches in diameter. The warning or the watch calls for 2 inches, but some of the warning and phrasing earlier by the National Weather Service said maybe 2.5 inches. Scattered damaging winds up to 70 mile an hour, and a couple tornadoes are possible. Yeah, Minneapolis might have some elevated storms overnight. Don't believe, kind of keeping an eye on Minneapolis and the Twin Cities. There's a few storms in northern parts of Minnesota, but not much going on right now. One storm, a little punchy there south of Bismarck. But I believe you guys are close to a marginal risk. Okay, they pushed a little more north. So yeah, marginal risk here in kind of northern and central parts of Minnesota. And those are going to be a later kind of overnight, later this evening and into the overnight for some gusty winds, maybe some large hail. But I think they were, there it is. I was pointing to the Kansas one, but it was the same thing, yeah. Basically some larger hail, potentially overnight. Likely dying out by the time they get to the Twin Cities, so that's good. We are in a marginal or a slight risk in this area here. These tornado warnings are in the slight risk area. There is a larger marginal risk. Covers basically central Kansas down through most of the Texas Panhandle. And we get a new tornado warning. It's going to be to the south. I was just about to leave that original severe thunderstorm. Quickly check this one. This is the storm that we can see on our Kansas Drive camera. We could see the tail cloud just a few minutes ago. It's kind of obscured a little bit. Yeah, really hard to kind of make out what's going on at the base of that storm. We're just, I think, a little too far away. This camera is positioned over Meade, Kansas, looking to the east. So you can kind of see it, but just not really getting a great visual of it yet. This one's starting to wrap a little bit here. We can watch this little hook, watch the rear flank downdraft. Doesn't have a lot of rotation right now. It's going to start growing some hail here. You can already see, yeah, there is hail in here. We can see that already. So this is a upscaling supercell here, lime size hail, considerable threat. We'll continue to watch that for a tornado risk. That would be south of Mineola in Kansas, along also Highway 283. That might get into some rain-cooled environments, so we'll keep an eye on that one for now. So you have a baseball-sized destructive severe thunderstorm. Some broad rotation showing there. In that supercell, it's a little further from the radar site. But yeah, it has some broad rotation in it. So again, we're seeing hailers pretty much right now. This is outside the watch area, but it looks like Wichita has a marginally severe thunderstorm. Wouldn't be surprised if that gets a warning. Let's see. Not seeing a lot of hail in that. It's really close to the radar site, though. That we may be shooting under the hail core. And then checking here north of Enid. This one's kind of not as punchy. Just a general severe thunderstorm. 60 mile an hour winds, quarter size hail. All right. I'm kind of in the middle of fall allergies, so my throat's a little scratchy and my eyes are watery a little bit. So sorry about that in advance. Okay. Go back to those tornado warnings real quick. They're going to extend the tornado warning here south of Laverne. I think that's a good call. Again, kind of broad rotation right now, but it is generally kind of stronger rotation. So we are seeing a big, broad mesocyclone. And I think it's prudent to continue that one. Again, Laverne down through Log Cabin Corner. Let's see if we get any other communities in here. Doesn't look like it. And yeah, that's going to be Laverne is the only community list on the warning. So just kind of checking, just making sure we got everybody covered there. There are a lot of smaller farm communities out in this area here in rural parts of the Oklahoma, Texas panhandle. So not a lot of major cities, but there are a decent populated area here. Let's see. Okay, and they're continuing the southward movement at 15 miles an hour. Earlier, it was moving more southeast at 20, but southeast at 15 is, I think, been its kind of MO for a while here. Let's see, at 15, that's going to put it kind of taking from the meso, so this doesn't include the hail core, but Catesby, Oklahoma, in about 55 minutes. So Log Cabin Corner, Laverne, down through, okay, there it is. Yeah, Catesby, just on the southern side of the tornado warning. If you're north of Catesby, I'd definitely be taking your tornado safety precautions. All right, so we've covered that storm pretty good. Let's get to our newest tornado warn storm. This was the apple-size hail, and it's in this area here near Perryton, Texas. This is going to be approaching areas here along 83, Highway 83, south of Perryton. That one doesn't look as organized. Let's see. Yeah, it's in the northeast corner of the Texas Panhandle. Can we get any sort of radar from there? Bit of a radar hole, but it is pretty flat outside, so that's good. Perryton, Texas, and especially south of there, that's where we have the broad rotation showing up kind of on the upper level of this storm. And definitely that apple-sized hail corridor is going to be south and east of Perryton. And this warning, they're bringing it at also south at 15. Let's see what I want to do with this. I want to take the, I guess I'll kind of take it from, there's kind of two hail cores, so this isn't going to fully cover. You're going to get hail before that, but I'll take it from the kind of tornadic part of the storm, and it's not pulling any communities out here, so that's a good sign. It's in a very rural area here in Ochiltree County, central Ochiltree County. I hope I'm saying that right, but a little better look on this storm. Let's take a look here. Yeah, this is an interesting visual here. We can see the base here a little bit. It's going to be right behind basically the highway sign, but there is a low base, a little bit of a tail cloud still showing up on it. So this is that area that we'd be looking at for a tornado. Not seeing one there. But that's looking at this little hook here along Highway 283 south of Mineola, Kansas. And yeah, still not rotating that much, so we're really just kind of seeing that base. But at least that gives us a decent visual of the storm, so helps to kind of verify the atmosphere that these storms are in. We do have some cameras down along the I-40 corridor, so as these storms do slide to the south, we'll see if they get down that far. But if we do, we do have cameras and along I-40. And then back in Oklahoma City, if anyone's watching from that area, right now you guys are clear. Those storm threats are really to the north right now of the OKC metro. So we can see some kind of blow off of those cloud tops. Getting a little bit more cloudy on this camera. This camera was pretty sunny just a little bit ago when we were setting up the stream. But yeah, some of those cloud tops are blowing off. Let's see if we can catch a little bit here of the setting sun. Yeah, we're starting to lose the light a little bit, but you can see on the earlier frames here, those cloud tops are blowing off towards the Oklahoma City metro. Yeah, there's maybe a little better look at it. Again, it's getting a little harder to see because of the light. Let me back it up just a little bit. Yeah, if I back it up just a little bit, you can kind of see those storms blowing off some clouds towards OKC metro. So interesting weather. Still watching the storm here in Kansas. It's sliding past our camera here. Basically, the meat of the storm is behind the screen here, or the sign. To the left of our camera, that's north, and then to the right, that's south. And as a southward moving supercell, it's crossing our camera position here from the left to right. They're extending out the considerable threat for lime-sized hail in this storm. The little notch doesn't look as pronounced, so that's a good sign. But there still is a little bit of an inflow notch right in there. And more of a nub than a hook. This is a big problem here along Highway 283. The tornadic part of the storm probably just west of Laverne with the broad rotation of that mezzo, but Laverne itself, small community out here along the US Highway 283, just getting absolutely hammered with hail. You guys are right in that hail core. We can see actually some deep correlation coefficient value drops. That's non-tornadic CC drop. That indicates some really beefy hail. If we start seeing these blues and the darker colors in a hail core, that's some really chunky hail. And hail, if you see the pictures of it, is not very smooth a lot of times. Even the smoother balls have little spikes on them and things. So that's what's showing up in the CC is all the little spiky balls of hail. They're not shaped the same. Some are more cigar shaped. Some are more like chunks. So yeah, that's not good. That's just absolutely going to hammer areas here. Laverne down to Log Cabin Corner. And again, seeing that rotation to the west of 283 right now. The cell to the north, not much rotation on it, but there's at least some decent hail in that too. Probably maybe lime-sized hail in there too. So wouldn't be surprised if some of these areas like Gate, Roston, they got hit pretty hard by the tornadic supercell. Gets another round of some pretty sizable hail. beautiful look there in that Kansas camera there with the storm sliding off. It seems to be moving pretty fast. Some of our other cells are moving at 15. This one is near the Clark State Lake, moving southeast at 25. Just by how quickly that's moved across our screen, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little faster than 25. Yeah, that one's moving to the south, I think, pretty quick. See it cross the areas around Mineola. It's probably not going to be tornadic anytime soon. It also has a little bit of a shower that's developed just on its flank here. Maybe on the kind of the rear flank cool air there, as well as some cool air from the storms that have previously kind of worked through this area. But that's going to disturb any tornadic activity that could have tried to get going. It's showing some real weak rotation. So right now, 2 tornado warnings. They're both radar indicated. Ochiltree County, Texas, and then Harper and Ellis County, Oklahoma. Here in far western Oklahoma, right by the Oklahoma Panhandle. And this one is in the northeast Texas Panhandle. We have 10 severe thunderstorm warnings. A couple of those are considerable and destructive. Comanche and Barber County, Kansas. Destructive storm with almost 3-inch hail. Clark County, Kansas, 2.5-inch hail. Another destructive storm for 3-inch hail. That's Lipscomb and Ochiltree County, Texas. That's the storm that's also tornado warned, and the larger severe thunderstorm warning covers some of that hail core. Pretty general severe thunderstorm, 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds for Grant, Alfalfa, and Garfield counties in Texas or in Oklahoma. Then another destructive storm that also covers the larger hail core around that tornado warned storm. Apple-sized hail, 80-mile-an-hour winds for Harper and Ellis counties. Again, if you're not in the tornado warning, but you're in the larger destructive severe thunderstorm warning, really treat it the same. If you're in Harper and Ellis counties, you need to be in a sturdy shelter away from windows, potentially apple-size hail thrown at you like a MLB pitcher at 80 miles an hour. So you definitely need to be away from windows in a sturdy structure. That kind of hail being that size thrown at that speed can easily shred through temporary structures, campers, mobile homes, tents, things like that. So you definitely want to be in a sturdy structure, away from windows, away from skylights. And since it's a south mover, preferably away from the north side of the structure, because that hail, wind driven, is going to be coming towards that northern side of the structure. See, we're almost done. A lot of severe thunderstorms. Comanche, Barber counties, lime-sized hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. That's the storm that we see on our Kansas Drive camera. Again, see the tail cloud showing up again. The beef of the storm is passing just now, probably off our camera pretty soon. But there's the little tail cloud showing some of that inflow, wrapping into that mezzo. It's a weak mezzo, but there's your tail cloud right there. And they are going to put a separate warning out for golf ball size hail for that storm that's north of Roston and Gate. Just going to kind of fill in that storm. It's moving southeast at 15. So some slow moving storms too, which means if you're in the hail core, you're going to be stuck in that hail core for quite a while. That is, that's not fun. So thinking a little further out here, because the tornado threat may start to diminish here. It's still showing some broad rotation in here. Again, kind of south and west of Laverne, essentially riding along and west of 283. But again, if the tornado threat diminishes, the hail threat is going to continue for, I think, quite a while. So areas around Fargo, Gage, Shattuck, here in western Oklahoma, you guys need to prepare for a damaging, destructive hailstorm. So you got a little bit of time. You're outside the warning polygons. So if you got some time here, Shattuck up to Gage and Fargo, put the car in the garage, get kind of everything hunkered down, because just to the north there, it's an 80-mile-an-hour apple-sized hail destructive severe thunderstorm. That's one of the higher end severe thunderstorm warnings we've seen on our streams in a while, and doesn't get much higher than that. We've seen some derechos that have the 80 to 90 mile an hour wind warning tags on them, but especially now we're not just dealing with those hurricane force winds, we're dealing with apple-sized hail, and I don't really have an apple. I should probably buy some like the plastic fruits and stuff so I can hold. That's it. We're gonna do that because I think it can help visualize people. A lot of visual learners, especially if you're watching a YouTube stream, you're probably a visual learner, so I'll have to do that. But apple-sized hail, you're talking something like that. So that's a chunky hailstone. Speaking of hail, maybe coming up a little bit on this cell. This cell seems to be organizing a little bit more. It may have just been over the radar sites. That's why it wasn't showing up very well earlier. But areas here around Nash and Hillsdale in Oklahoma, Pond Creek, and Jefferson, you guys are under a severe thunderstorm warning, and they have just updated it to ping pong ball size hail. So just as we're talking about that storm, it's been updated to ping pong ball size. That's going to be just east of Nash, here along US 64 and just south, approaching areas like Hillsdale. So again, Hillsdale, you're in the warning polygon. You want to hunker down, lowest level, into your room, away from those doors, windows, and skylights. Keep an eye on this one if you're in Enid. Enid here, not in the warning polygon, but we'll keep an eye on you guys. That one's moving a little quicker at 30 miles an hour. So let's take this out here. We'll take out kind of the leading edge of the hail core, southeast at about 30. That's going to put it in Hillsdale in about 8 minutes. Kremlin, 14. Pond Creek, about 10 minutes. But Pond Creek, you're probably going to you're going to miss the bigger hail. That's going to be to your west. So more of an issue here, like Ituna, about 16 minutes. Kremlin, 14. North Enid, if this holds together, about 23 minutes to North Enid, and then 28 minutes to Enid proper. So again, about 20 to 30 minutes, if that holds together, that's ping pong ball size hail coming into Enid, Oklahoma. So we'll keep an eye on Enid here. And let me see if I have a camera at Enid. We may have one. Let's grab our, let's see. That's getting into a little more populated area. No, none right there. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that one. Probably one of the last better looks at this storm on our camera. That's our Kansas Drive camera. Again, watching this storm. Wow, yeah, it is moving, I think, faster than 25. So that's something that we need to really pay attention on. And now we've had a public report of 3-inch diameter hail. That was in Mineola a little bit ago. So that is going to be upgraded to an apple-size hail destructive severe thunderstorm as well. Again, it's kind of condensed a little bit. So dealing with a little bit of some rain-cooled environment and a couple showers that it's had to deal with. So I think it's less of a tornadic threat right now. But there's the hail core showing up just onto the areas here between Ashland. Let's zoom in a little bit. Ashland along Highway 160. And that's the good news is I'm zooming in pretty quick, or pretty tight here. Yeah, basically just northwest of Ashland in Kansas. That is going to be some beefy hail as well. And yeah, it's really lost. Really not a tornadic threat at all right now. So we'll see if it regroups. Another cell. This is another supercell. Some broad rotation in that one near Etna in Kansas. $half size hail extended into Woods County in northern Oklahoma. That's $half size hail, 60-mile-an-hour wind coming towards areas here north and east of Freedom, west of Alva, Oklahoma. And then areas around Wichita. I was a little surprised we haven't got a severe warning out of Wichita. Let's see. It's right over the radar site, but likely producing some small hail and some gusty winds. This storm here. Yeah, it's probably non-severe winds, but wouldn't be surprised if we get a hail report or two out of those as well. Let me just update and make sure I have the latest. Yeah. Okay, so we have our hail reports. They're turned on earlier, 1 3/4 inch hail in Ashland. So that area around Ashland, Kansas getting hammered again with some larger hail. And then considerable threat here, Gate down to Follett. That's going to be for this area here with golf ball size hail. And then also the rear flank downdraft winds around this large mezzo. It's kind of broadened out a bit. It's kind of ragged and messy, but there can be some 70 to 80-mile-an-hour winds within that mezzo. So for that alone, it's worth the severe thunderstorm warning. They have backed off the hail a little bit, lime-sized hail now. And if there's lime-sized hail, it's in this area just south of Laverne through Log Cabin Corner. Areas here along Highway 283, Highway 270, right here where Log Cabin Corner kind of intersects those two highways. Some well-traveled areas. And again, we can see the large mezzo basically blowing out this way with the winds going away from the radar in the oranges and reds, and then going towards the radar in these brighter greens. So very broad rotation right now. I don't think it's tightened up anytime recently. This has produced at least, I think, 1 or 2 tornadoes. We had one, I think, confirmed. It may have dropped a second a while ago now, over an hour ago. So, and I'm surprised those haven't populated yet. But yeah, the tornado, I think, was north of Roston, if I remember right. But yeah, still some, again, dangerous hail and dangerous wind. Maybe a little bit of a tightening right there. Yeah, that would be right where could get a new tightening right in there. So we'll keep an eye on that. Still could produce a spin up. Sometimes these broad mezzos tend to put down a tentacle here, a tentacle there, especially if they can't concentrate a really focused area of rotation. So we'll continue to watch that one. Couple new severe thunderstorm warnings here in an area that wasn't really in a risk area. So that's interesting. Quarter size hail. This is in south central South Dakota, north of Winter. Kind of just drifting around. Hi, Sean. How's it going tonight? Yeah, that's an interesting one. It looks like it's not even going to make it to the end of this warning polygon. It's actually gotten pulled a little more towards the east. So if you're in this area an ideal segment, keep an eye on that storm. Yeah, it's been a very interesting hurricane season. We are near the peak of hurricane season. I thought we would have hurricane coverage by now, but we have not. Luckily, actually. This storm is an interesting storm, lime-size hail to ping pong ball size hail. But in this warning, see that here along Highway 83, the Pacific has been just cranking out storms. It's been a very weird hurricane season, and actually the Pacific has another. This got up today from a medium to a high chance of development here. So we'll watch another storm off the Pacific. Let's see. Let's get a look here. Yeah, it's going to be for this wave that's down in here. It's going to continue riding up through areas here southwest of Mexico over the next couple of days. Again, now National Hurricane Center giving that area of development, area of interest, 70%, 7-day, 30%, 2-day. Yeah, it's a wave southwest of Mexico. The waves here, once they've gone to kind of a medium to high chance, they've actually tended to overperform. So at least in the past couple times when the National Hurricane Center's put out a high 7-day, they've tended to develop in like the 2 to 5-day kind of time frame. So we'll see if that holds true. There hasn't been a ton of risks along the Mexican coast. The last one, Lorena posed a little bit of a risk to the Baja, and but then it actually turned and completely went opposite of the cone and basically went that way when the cone was forecasted to go kind of like that. So that was an interesting one. We were originally kind of looking to cover a little more of the Pacific, but there's basically no radars in Mexico. The radar coverage in Mexico is actually pretty poor. So yeah, I was planning on some prep just in case Lorena scraped along the coast. Because Lorena was even closer in the area of interest. The Lorena area of interest kind of covered like this area, which covers areas here around Acapulco and stuff. And there's just actually no radar down in here, even out towards the Baja. So that's been interesting. We have Kiko. Kiko has been the little engine that could actually reach Category 4 hurricane strength a couple times. Even though it's gone into cooler water, it re-strengthened the other day into another Category 4 hurricane for like the second time. It's finally in cool waters north and east of Hawaii, so it's going to continue to downgrade. It looks like by late tonight, early tomorrow, it should be a tropical storm. The good news is earlier this week, they had a hurricane cone that went across Hawaii. That's clearly pushed to the north. And it can be sometimes hard to judge the distances out here because Hawaii is just out on its own. So you just see a lot of emptiness outside of Hawaii. But this is actually like, I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be like 300 to 400 miles away from Hawaii. So it's not as close as it looks. The biggest threat for Hawaii looks to be just really heavy surf, especially on these north and east facing beaches here. So if you have any interest in Hawaii, if you know anyone there, just make sure you're at guarded beaches and also an experienced swimmer. Because, yeah, the surf out here and the high waves and rip currents is going to be really, really dangerous. And these type of situations can make it worse because now that Kiko is going to pass well to the north and east, it's not going to have any rain or much wind on the Hawaiian Islands. So it's going to look like a great beach day. It's going to be all nice and sunny. But really deceiving because those waves are going to really hammer the islands as early as today and then over the next couple days. Just based on this, it looks like Kiko's closest pass might be this area here. Maybe about 200 miles to the northeast of Honolulu. And as you can see here, it's getting sheared apart. So most of the precip is off to the and northeast. Yeah, the wind field also kind of stretches off more toward the north. So likely not direct threats to the Hawaiian Islands. Sean got more than he bargained for, probably just noting the hurricane season. There's nothing in the Atlantic. I forgot to mention that. Geeking out over the Pacific, but there's a couple waves, but there's just a ton of dry Saharan air in really the main development region here between the west coast of Africa and the Leeward Islands. So this is all just really dry air, and it's just shutting any development down. The waves are staying far to the south. They're staying disorganized. So you can see just normal waves. It looks like maybe 3 of them here across the main development region. But yeah, they're just, there's too much dry air all in here. So we'll continue to watch it. Some very long range modeling. I tend to not use it too much, but let's see. There we go. That's a good one. Some very long range modeling, at least today and yesterday, have hinted at maybe something trying to develop out of the Western Caribbean, maybe in kind of the middle of September. So we'll keep an eye on those trends. But right now, it was over 200 hours, and models over 200 hours are non-reliable. So we'll keep an eye on it. There's kind of a little Central American gyre that can sometimes spin up stuff. If a wave can kind of get in here. We also do have to watch, there are some degraded frontal boundaries draped across Florida. That's why Florida's been very wet, but just disorganized showers and storms. Those can sometimes spin up stuff. So if a frontal boundary kind of sags into this area, and there's already kind of a Central American gyre, low pressure in this region, that maybe can help kind of concentrate an area of tropical activity in some very warm waters. So the water temperature is not an issue for anywhere in the Caribbean or the Gulf. So we'll see. If anything becomes more concrete, we'll definitely have videos and live streams and stuff to prep anyone. But right now, if you have any interests along the Gulf Coast, in the Caribbean, in Central America, a lot of people down in Cancun, Belize, there's no problems here in the Atlantic for at least the next 5 to 7 days. There is a lot of, I just noticed that there's a lot of NWS. So some of these are that's a private site. That's a university site. That's a university site. That's Mizzou and Western Illinois, but there's actually quite a few NWS sites out here right now. Looks like Huntsville's down. That's a university site, I believe. That's Louisiana Monroe. Like the Austin radar's down. Tulsa's airport radar, and it looks like Springfield's radar. I mean, hurricanes bring a really kind of an all hazards threat, especially hurricanes that create, there's been some pretty historic tornado outbreaks from hurricanes landfalling. So hurricanes definitely bring a more widespread danger. Rip currents, if you count rip currents and high waves, I mean, that can extend outside of the impact of a direct hurricane threat too. So yeah, hurricanes are serious business. The good news is now in the modern time is we have a lot of time with hurricanes. They're not just going to pop up. I couldn't imagine being in the early like 1900s. I think it was today or yesterday. It was the anniversary of the Galveston hurricane. It killed like thousands of people in Galveston, Texas, and you know, before satellite and radar and modern weather forecasting, I mean, it may be a clear sunny day one day, and the next day you're dealing with a Category 5 hurricane. So at least right now, yeah, we don't really get surprised by hurricanes anymore. Even ones that pop up close to you know, in the Gulf, that, you know, system develops down here, you still have at least 24 to 48 hours. If it was a rapidly moving northbound or eastbound storm, you still have some time. And really the big killer for hurricanes is the water. You want to get away from the storm surge. That's something the National Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center have really worked on the warnings. And when we do get to hurricane season, we have here with Radar Omega, we have a whole suite of tropical warnings. But you can see they do have a storm surge warning. That's one that the National Hurricane Center has done a lot of research, a lot of fine tuning on, especially since Katrina. So, yeah, they do a lot more advanced stuff with the storm surge warnings now. But yeah, if you count tropical cyclones in general, they're also much more of a world problem. We have tropical cyclones that hit in Australia, in Southeast Asia and Eastern Asia, and also in the Indian Ocean. Some of the worst hurricane disasters in some really highly populated areas like Myanmar, Bangladesh, that don't have as good of warning systems, and very low-lying areas. Bangladesh is essentially a estuary, so very flat, low-lying areas. Very similar, kind of similar to New Orleans and the Gulf Coast areas like that. You can see all the estuary ecosystem here. So very low-lying. Storm surge is a big problem in some of these developing countries. China does a little better. Well, a lot better. They have a lot more advanced technology. China's coastline is a lot less susceptible. In fact, if you zoom in, there's a decent, they have a decent coastal area, but elevation goes up. You can see pretty quickly once you get inland. So inland flooding is a threat, but they don't have as much of a kind of a New Orleans kind of like coastal plain. But yeah, they're much more technologically advanced, so they have a decent warning system. Same for Japan. Japan deals with hurricanes, especially in the southern parts of the islands, but Japan is a very, very well prepared natural disaster country in general, with a really, really well organized tsunami warning system, earthquake warning system, hurricane typhoon warning system. So yeah, Eastern Asia is a little bit more like us, that they're very well advanced and prepared for tropical systems. Yeah, it's gonna be north of Hawaii by like 400 miles, 300 miles. Ooh, a new tornado warning. Let's get back to that real quick. Yeah, I had some stuff planned for Kiko, just in case it got close. The other day, the Hawaiian Islands were in that forecast cone, so it was looking like we might have hurricane coverage for the Hawaiian Islands, but now it looks like it's very unlikely we will have coverage. It's just going to pass to the north and just be a heavy wave threat. Continuing that area there, the broad area of rotation, it has tightened a little bit, but it's in here near Catesby, Oklahoma. And the hail cores come down a little bit, so that's good. Lime-size hail. Still 70 mile an hour lime-sized hail, Shattuck gauge west of Fargo. I'd be hunkered down. Oh boy. Look. I should know, Sean, but I don't know just because they tend to not be a threat for North America. I tend not to. I don't know their the names as much as only kind of like Kiko, where it was threatening the Hawaiian Islands, or Lorena, that was an interest for the Baja and brought some moisture into the Southwest. But let me see. Okay, so we had Kiko, Lorena. Mario is going to be the next system out of the Eastern Pacific. So yeah, again, Mario likely forming in the next couple days. Yeah, Mario is going to be forming down here south and east of Acapulco. Yeah, and I wish I would cover the Mexican coastline more, because they sometimes do get hurricanes at landfall, but there's no radar. So it can be really hard here for basically a YouTube channel that functions off a radar. There's just no NextRad sites. But yeah, that would be Mario, the wave that's here off the southern Mexican coast, basically, and west of El Salvador. Oh, there's a good look at it. Yeah. So yeah, not doing much yet. Just kind of a disorganized area of showers and storms, but we'll watch for that disorganized area to kind of move towards the west-northwest with a high chance of development. Couple islands. I think Mexico owns these islands, but I believe they're uninhabited. I don't know why I clicked on one of these old radar sites and now it wants to just default me to them. Let's see. Actually, I'm just gonna go. Just gonna reset the radar. Sometimes that also gives me new updates. Yeah, it's been interesting how the East Pac has just been printing off hurricanes and tropical systems, while the Atlantic has been so quiet. Other than the Hurricane Aaron that actually reached Category 5 strength, but luckily turned away from the coastline. Let's see. So yeah, the East Pac, Mario is next, and then Narda, Octave, Priscilla, Raymond, Sonia, Tico, Velma, Wallace, Xena, York, and Zelda are the names left in the East Pac. Watching a couple of those stronger storms south of Wichita. Maybe some small hail, gusty winds. Let's take a look here at some of these supercells back here in really Oklahoma now. North and east of Freedom, still watching tennis ball size hail. Areas here basically between Freedom and Alva, Oklahoma. Need to be in a sturdy shelter away from windows. That storm that was producing some ping pong ball size hail earlier near Hillsdale and Nash, that's coming through Enid. The good news is it's backed off quite a bit. Quarter size hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. So basically a general severe thunderstorm. Not even seeing a lot of wind in that right now. So again, maybe some quarters, some gusty winds, lightning. So hunker down for a few minutes here in Enid, let that get by you, and then have a good evening. This one is our main supercell that we've been following. This was really the first one to go up. Went tornado warned, had at least a brief tornado or two, and then it still had broad rotation at times. Still seeing broad rotation south of Log Cabin Corner, north of Shattuck. So we'll continue to watch this. It's still kind of a pretty broad mezzo, but there is a beefy hail core in here. At times it's had apple-size hail. It's down a little bit to lime-size hail. So lime-size hail, that's going to be possible here along Highway 283 between Log Cabin Corner and north of Shattuck. If you're anywhere in here west of Fargo, along Oklahoma Highway 15, especially Gage and Shattuck, you need to hunker down. And very similar to a tornado, lowest level into your room. You need to be in a sturdy shelter away from windows. And mobile homes, temporary structures, you need to get out of those, get to a sturdy shelter, because large hail with 70-mile-an-hour winds can shred through mobile home camping trailers and tents and things. West of there, we have right here on the Oklahoma-Texas Panhandle border near Follette, we have a storm here, ping pong ball size hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Going to move into the Texas Panhandle. This one was a tornado warned storm briefly near Perryton. Still showing some broad rotation, but that is some beefy wind that's going away from the radar here. So likely some wind-driven hail, 80-mile-an-hour wind-driven apple-size hail. This is another one of those warnings that we've had today. A destructive severe thunderstorm that you need to treat like a tornado warning, because it's essentially a major league pitcher throwing apples at you. So wind-driven apple-size hail is a threat here south of Perryton, Texas. Luckily, there's not much in here. It's going to be north of Canadian, Texas. Anywhere there north of Canadian, south of Perryton along Highway 83, you need to be in a safe space, sturdy structure away from windows. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a while with that dry air just out in here. It's really shut off the main development region right now. If we get anything, again, I think I mentioned earlier, I don't know if he stepped out or not. There's some longer range signs of something kind of spinning up in the Western Caribbean, maybe working into the Gulf. So we'll see about that. This is not a hype channel. We're not a clickbait channel. So I'm not even gonna bring out the models to show you guys, but models as far out as I was seeing are generally unreliable, but it was a fairly consistent signal for it. So once it gets within 100 hours, or especially about 180 hours, within about 7 days, you can start to take that with a little more than a grain of salt. Right now, it's just too far out. I think it was showing maybe a development in about 12 days. So we'll see if it holds kind of those signals. And then it also, this far out, one kind of went like this. The next model one went like this. The next model run went like this. So there's just a big spread to just each model kind of handled it differently. One kind of just didn't do anything and then had it die out. So, yeah, I think if we're going to get anything, it's going to be something closer to home with those frontal boundaries and the Central American gyre and the degraded frontal boundaries here that have draped along Florida. I think it's going to probably be a homegrown system. So they've extended the warning here, the tornado warning through this area just around Follett. This is on the Texas side of things. I believe we're dealing with, we're dealing with 2 National Weather Service offices. Norman handles the Oklahoma side, and then on the Texas Panhandle side, this is Amarillo. So really just extending it out because this, the meso is kind of riding right along the Oklahoma-Texas line. It has tightened a little bit in here, so that's been interesting. It's probably going to be hard to see. Yeah, we're getting further from the radar site too, so this may also just be looking at more of an upper level area of rotation, but still pretty strong. Yeah, that's still going to be our best look out of the Dodge City radar. So we're seeing it from a far distance, but there's your winds going away from the radar. Here's your winds going towards the radar. Right in here near Catesby, Oklahoma. And then they have let the warning expire for this stormer in Englewood, Kansas. Again, that's non-tornadic. I wouldn't be surprised if there's still some small hail out of that storm. Baseball size, 70 mile an hour destructive severe thunderstorm, Freedom over to areas west of Alva, Oklahoma. And then we're going to get a new tornado warning here for this storm south of Perryton. This is back here along Highway 83, along Texas Highway 70. So seeing some rotation in here. It's not super tight, but we're also seeing those 80 mile an hour destructive winds too. So let's see. This may be verifying. Still pretty far from the radar site though. It's going to be out of Amarillo. Yeah, kind of seeing some rotation start to pick up in here along the flank of this. Again, south of Perryton. And yeah, the best news there for this storm is that there's no communities that show up along there. There are people though. So if you are watching from that area along State Route Highway 70, south of Perryton, you need to be in your tornado safe space. Yeah, those are some lower populated areas. That's good news. Check our kind of random severe thunderstorms. Ping pong ball size hail also in this storm here in Nebraska. This is for Cherry County in north central Nebraska. It's near Valentine Wildlife Refuge, 16 miles south of Valentine. Ping pong ball size hail, some gusty winds. Maybe developing in more of a wind threat. We can see a little bit of an arc of wind surging out here. And that's kind of out ahead of the main part of that storm. So that's a good sign. Maybe starting to gust out. I think if there's any severe weather in Minnesota, it's going to be later tonight. There are some storms around Duluth. There's a little bit of a marginal risk up there in north central Minnesota, but that's going to be a later developing situation. And mostly elevated hailstorms is the threat out there. Probably not going to be on for those. It's going to be an overnight threat. Yeah, it'll be interesting, Sean, to see if the hurricane season wakes up for the Atlantic. I was seeing some social media discussion from some hurricane experts, um, and it was an interesting discussion. Basically, it's going to have to wake up very quickly to be anywhere close to the preseason projections by the National Hurricane Center, Colorado State, some of the major Weather Channel, some of the major outlets and universities and research groups that make their annual hurricane predictions. They were calling for basically all of them were calling for an above average season again with a extra warm Atlantic waters. And yeah, the Saharan dust and the dry air over the central Atlantic and the main development region has just really limited development chances. It's just kind of shredding the waves apart as they work their way across the Atlantic. So even by the time they get into more favorable environments like in the Caribbean or in the more western parts of the Atlantic basin, they're just not getting there with anything left to even develop around. So yeah, so some of the conversation was that it's going to have to wake up very quickly and basically overperform as we get into peak hurricane season to catch some of those original projections. And then some of the other hurricane experts and specialists were saying, even if it does just kind of perform as normally a peak would, it may still end up being at or below the average. So that's that. I mean, we've had some pretty rough hurricane seasons the last few years. Some of them haven't been the most active, but some of them have had some really impactful storms. And then others like 2020, 2021 have been super active with storms and impacts. So if we get a low impact and a low number, that's we'll take the break, I think. Yeah, still seeing rotation in this storm south of Perryton. And if anyone lives out there, if you know anyone that lives out there, give them a heads up, give them a call, let them know there's a big storm with a potential tornado, and then also the destructive apple-size hail coming their way. This has intensified a little bit again here. This is intriguing. We're far from the radar again, so hard to say exactly what's going on at the ground level, but that is as tight as that circulation has looked in quite a while. So I wouldn't be surprised if this tries to put down a new tornado. It's going to have to really lift a bunch of stuff to get a CC drop out of this. And this is a kind of a semi-arid scrubland, farmland kind of. So unless it really hits some grove of trees, hopefully no building structures, we may not get a good look at this just because we're so far out above the ground level at the radar here. So yeah, if we have our little thunderstorm and our tornado's picking up debris, but our radar beam overshoots that debris, we're not going to see anything on the CC. It would have to be a really strong tornado to lift stuff up to that beam level. But yeah, this might try to put down something again here. And we're seeing at least a signal for some pretty strong winds. So tornado warning continues. It's going to be for Ellis County in northwest Oklahoma and Beaver County, also in the panhandle of Oklahoma, and Lipscomb County in the panhandle of Texas. Areas here around Follett. Although Follett, looks like the main area of circulation is going to be to the east. It's really riding right along the state line. This border between the two warnings is the state line between Oklahoma and Texas over here. Do we need to make those state borders a little thicker? We'll go with that. This is Radar Omega. It is super customizable. So I like it has all the products that I need. It has obviously high res reflectivity. It has base reflectivity, but I mostly stick to the high res stuff. Velocities, storm relative, spectrum width. It has precip accumulations. Haven't had to deal with a lot of flooding tonight, but that's been useful in other times. It's got dual pool, so pretty much all you need. It's just another dual pool way to look at the radar, and same with the. I tend to use CC just because it's so. I'm already on it, and I have a trigger key for the CC. But dual pool can technically give you a little better detail to hail. Sometimes the CC is not fully indicative of hail, although generally, like when we see signals like this in CC, where the hail core is overlapping on the reflectivity and the CC, that's a pretty good generalization of the hail core. But the dual pool, let me see. Where is it? Ooh. There's your hail core showing up here on some of the other products too, the differential. And then on this one, you can see the hail core in here as well. So it mostly just kind of helps me. I really need to kind of see a little bit more internally what's going on, but a lot of times I just kind of rough it and just use the correlation coefficient, since it can show enough on the correlation coefficient. The one thing that correlation coefficient kind of doesn't do great is the correlation coefficient tends to have a lot of clutter. So you can see a lot of this edge here is kind of darker blue. That's just clear air clutter right on the edge of that cell. So that tends to like up here, that's clear air. So that's the one downside, I think, to the correlation coefficient, is it's very cluttered. So unless you really kind of know what you're looking for, like there's your hail core, it can be sometimes a little hard to pick out stuff. Stuff like this here can look like a tornado debris signature kind of thing, where it's a deep cluster of darker colors on the CC. But that's actually clear air on the backside. So some of the other products can help kind of eliminate that a little bit. If I go back to the differential, it's not quite as cluttered, but we can see the higher values in here indicating those hail cores. So kind of different ways to present the same thing, but it's just kind of seeing the larger hail products in here. And then if you really kind of want to know, like this is, when we kind of get a little quieter, I do want to do some radar tutorials. Yeah, Georgia's had you guys have been kind of on that stalled boundary. You guys had some pretty strong storms the other day too, I think, right? The Georgia football game on Saturday was delayed a while for weather. Things are clearing out a little bit. It looks like that boundary is kind of draped across North Florida right now. So I think even Georgia's going to get into some of that slightly fall weather. There's actually a weak tornado that spun up in Florida yesterday, just on a boundary collision. I'm just kind of looking, just case we have anything weird going on down here, but storms don't look quite as punchy in Florida right now. Some good news here. This cell is really kind of collapsing here in Enid. So that's a good sign. It was producing some 1-inch hail earlier. Even through Enid, it produced some 1-inch hail. This cell also came down a little bit. Freedom over to west of Alva. This was a destructive severe thunderstorm a little bit ago with apple-size hail down to golf ball-size hail. 60-mile-an-hour winds. Looks like that cell around Englewood, Kansas seems to be diminishing. So we're kind of focused in on basically these cells right here on the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles. And it looks like Norman is going to drop the tornado warning. Wouldn't be surprised if Amarillo does. This has really backed off after it kind of peaked just a few minutes ago. Yeah, if you give me a city name, I can kind of see where they are. That'd be good. Yeah, if you know their area, even if you don't want to share their exact town, but if you know like the bigger town near them, I can get you kind of a look to see where they are. These are all storms here. Essentially, this one between Follett and Shattuck, the one west of Follett, and then the one south of Perryton. That you want to be in a low level interior room and a sturdy structure, because these are wind-driven 2 to 3 inch hailstones. See if there's any new tornado reports on that one storm. Yeah, so if you want to give a city name, I can look up where they what storm's going to impact them. Looks like there was another rope tornado. Yeah, kind of a weak wispy rope north of Laverne about an hour ago. So this one storm here that's still tornado warned, but seems to be diminishing in at least the tornadic part of the mesocyclone. Probably produced 2-3 tornadoes as it's kind of worked its way along 283 from near Mineola, then crossing into Oklahoma near Laverne, and now approaching Shattuck. Gregory, South Dakota. Yeah, let's look. Gregory, South Dakota. All right, they are. Oh, yeah, they got some storms around. Maybe some small hail in this storm south of Gregory. Let's see where this is going. Looks like that one's kind of sliding to the southeast, so probably not going to affect Gregory. But again, if they're not right in town, you know, if they're down like here south of town, that could be a little closer. So, yeah, non-severe, but maybe some small hail, gusty winds. And then let me take a look here. They're just in a general thunderstorm. Oh no, they have added. That's a change. They've added a marginal risk here for this little area. So yeah, southern parts of South Dakota and then this north central part of Nebraska is now in that in the marginal risk. Let's see. Isolated large hail would be the threat there. Maybe some isolated damaging winds. Really not a tornado threat. Never, you can never say never, but yeah, it looks like it's kind of hail and wind. When did I first start tracking storms? Oh boy. I guess when I was a little kid, because I just was glued to the Weather Channel when I was a young kid. Like we'd have like, you know, kid shows and stuff like PBS and cartoons, but a lot of times I would just put on the Weather Channel, and back in the old days it was like Cantori, and I mean he's still there, but some of the kind of the OGs of the Weather Channel, Dr. Greg Forbes, Brian Norcross, hurricane expert, was it Mike Bettis? So yeah, I guess I just kind of grew up tracking those storms, and then this channel kind of started as a hobby because I just decided to do it, and then I didn't even realize there was many other people doing it. I think I saw some video way back from Ryan RH. So I think I knew like at least he was doing it, the weather streaming, but I didn't realize there's actually more weather streamers than I thought. That sometimes I just realize like a couple weeks ago there's another weather streamer, but you gotta kind of watch because some of them are more reputable than others. So I didn't realize how many non-reputable weather streamers were already on here. So that kind of then drove me to focus in a little more on this than a hobby, just because I think some people are kind of getting a little too weather isn't their main focus or expertise or anything like that. That's awesome. I mean, that's good that you're just getting into it, but yeah. So just keep looking at radar, and you can follow. That's the other thing too. Like if people are following at home, I try to kind of detail what I'm looking at too when I going over the storms, just so if someone is watching on their on your app at home, you can kind of see what I'm seeing. And you can do that with the Weather Channel too. If you're watching like severe weather coverage on the Weather Channel, or if you're watching, you know, James Spann or something like that, you know, you can have your app pulled up on your phone, and then you can kind of see what they're seeing. Also, like your local weather. You know, if the local news station's doing severe weather coverage, you can kind of pull it up on your app and see, you know, as they kind of explain it. That's a great way to kind of learn how your app's working, and also kind of see what they see. And I guess the one downside is it's great we have all these apps that are so handy and so free on our phones now, but they're really powerful tools. And it's kind of like just giving like a really young kid a key to a car without really going through like the instructions. So I know if anyone's using Radar Omega, they do have a YouTube channel of their own. Some of the videos are older, but basically the basics of it is still true. So you can go on to like Radar Omega's YouTube and put in and their how-to videos and kind of and do it that way. I think some of the other apps do too. I'm sure they have some tutorial videos that can help show you that. Weather-wise, yeah, some of the apps like that have actually a lot of free tools, which is really nice. So it's great if you're just getting into it, because there's a ton of stuff on there that's it's not behind the paywall. So that's a nice thing, but yeah, just it just takes a lot of practice, and then you start to recognize pattern recognition and start to see. So a lot of times we can, you know, I try to keep this a non-hype channel. non-clickbait channel, but a lot of times we do kind of see pattern recognition. We can call out, like you did, Jay, there. We can start to see a mesocyclone wrapping up on radar, call it out even sometimes before there's a tornado warning to give some people heads up. And, you know, we're not making up our own warnings. We're not scaring people, but, you know, you can say, hey, this storm's wrapping up. I think it might get a tornado warning in a few minutes. Let's see. Chipmunk, Perryton in the path. No, Perryton is north, and this storm is headed to the south. So this is south of Perryton. I think it's about 15 miles. Yeah, about 17 now. 15 to 17 south of Perryton. So Chipmunk, if you know anyone that's south of Perryton along Texas Highway 70, give them a call. Let them know that that storm is coming their way. Yeah, they're good. You're good in Perryton. You're away from the storm, and there's no other storms behind you. So it looks like that's good. South of Perryton, not so good. Flash flood warning. A couple inches of rain have already fallen. And then, yeah, we got our tornadic circulation would be in this little area here. Doesn't look that impressive, but there's your winds going towards the radar. And there's your winds going away from the radar. So tornado would sit right in this little notch in here. And that's where we see this little appendage. I'll tell you, though, it's not looking imminently tornadic. Generally, south movers are not, but you can see how it's kind of a squared off appendage. We would kind of really start to see, really want to see like that hook start to really kind of wrap itself. That little RFD surge that helps wrap that hook tends to develop that tornadic circulation. It tightens up and funnels that inflow a little better. So when we see a flat face like that, it's generally not imminently tornadic. And they're going to, these storms I think have slowed down a little bit. They're going to extend the warning here for Shattuck and Gage. Lime-size hail, considerable threat there. Yeah, that's, I think hail is going to be the main threat here today. And yeah, if you're under one of these hail cores, you're going to be under them for a little while because they're moving at 15 or 20 miles an hour. Just reloading the radar because sometimes we can see some new updates. Let's see. Nope. Oh, there's one. Yeah, 2-inch hail report. Clear Lake State Park. There in Kansas a little while ago. Kansas, your storms have really died off. Looks like Kansas, kind of minimal severe threat now. Still watching a little bit of a small hailstorm near Oxford, south of Wichita. Take a look. They all probably have rotation. Oh, geez. Gonna be kind of at the end of the radar site. These are moving away from the Dodge City radar, but they're not quite towards the Amarillo radar. So we're going to get some really messy looks out of these. It looks like non-tornadic rotation. There's going to be a mesocyclone just because it needs a big updraft for the hail core. These all have beefy hail cores, so they all have rotating mesocyclones, but that's not in an area that that may be contaminated because it's not in an area that would typically have. If it was a tornadic circulation, it'd be likely down in this little hook. We're just getting a little too far from the radar to really kind of see what's going on at the ground level. But I'm not worried about that storm right now. as far as a tornado, that one still has big hail. Let's see. Yeah, golf ball size hail. That was a crazy day. St. Louis is still recovering from that too. I saw a satellite image recently, and you could see a fresh satellite image. You can see the scar of the tornado across the city. Thanks for giving us a look too, Jay. Like and subscribe too, because we cover all over. So it's been kind of quiet for Georgia, but the South gets a second season of severe weather in November. So I'm sure we'll be covering the areas in Georgia at some point here in a little while. Right now, yeah, Georgia's been so quiet. We haven't had much coverage down there in a while. And certainly tropical systems, if anything threatens the southeast, will cover you guys too. Let's take a look here. These are dew points. Looks like Georgia's going to be pretty quiet for a while. The blue and the purples are the more muggy high dew points. And over the next couple days, that really stays confined to the southern parts of the state, like Columbus and Macon and Savannah, and especially along the Florida-Georgia line. But this is some really nice air. This is fall-like air in the greens, lower humidity, cooler nights. Like some parts of North Georgia and the mountains might even get close to 40s, low 50s. And then certainly some of those higher terrain areas like the Smokies might get into the 40s for some lows. Especially the northern half of the state, mid 70s as highs. That's pretty good. Carolinas too. That's some great weather for that time of year. And yeah, look at the this is why we haven't been on much. This is just a big another reinforced shot of fall air mass. It is going to warm up a little bit in the plains though this week. You can see kind of by the middle of the week starting to get more of those 80s, 90s kind of building in the central US and then also down here in the Gulf Coast. But look at this. Still really nice across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, even down into the Carolinas, even Georgia for this time of year. Upper 70s, low 80s, some lower humidity. That's really nice. Well, you mentioned earlier, they basically trimmed this whole watch area off of the Kansas side. So Kansas, Your severe threat is done for this evening. Let's see. Maybe back again tomorrow. Marginal risk, eastern Colorado, extreme eastern New Mexico, basically the Texas Panhandle, the Oklahoma Panhandle, and western parts of Kansas. So areas like Dodge City could get more storms tomorrow. It's going to be kind of the same the next couple days. There's not any large scale severe weather features. They're just kind of these little short waves coming off the Rockies, or for the those areas here in Nebraska. It's actually a little short wave that's kind of dove out of the Canadian prairies across the Dakotas here this evening. Storms are generally behaving themselves here, though. That one near your buddy there in Gregory, that might be one of the stronger storms right now in that part of the country. But just a general thunderstorm. I think, Jay, you caught another one. Let's see. Apparently, this area of rotation has persisted long enough that they're going to warn that storm near DeRusit, Texas. Let's see if we get a better view of this over here. Yeah, it's kind of hanging on back here. Yeah, that gives me and you guys an update from the radar that there's a new tornado warning. It is still rotation showing up in here. So yeah, I guess they feel like it's persisted long enough where it does need a tornado warning. It's really far from the radar site, but there's winds going towards the radar and some winds stronger going away from the radar. But it's in a kind of a weird location. It's really not moving much. Yeah, November picks up along the Gulf Coast. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. Georgia has Georgia can be kind of interesting because I feel like on some of those Gulf Coast outbreaks and stuff, like tornado warnings will start here in kind of the Mississippi Valley, and then they move into Georgia in the evening, and especially in the spring or the fall when it gets dark earlier. That area is kind of in western Georgia, tend to get those tornado warnings after dark, so that can be a really dangerous thing. I don't know my Georgia. Okay. Okay, that's like, yeah, like southeast Georgia. So you were right on that line, I think, from the higher humidity was kind of just along that edge, and then the nicer humidity, the lower humidity was up here in this part. So you're going to get some days, I think, generally lower humidity this week. If anyone's just joining us, it's let's see, it's 8:24. We have 3 tornado warned supercells basically now in the Texas Panhandle. One south of Perryton, one near Dorzette. I'm not saying that right, and then near Follette, Texas. Still seeing some broad rotation in that Follette cell, but that cell has mostly kind of backed off rotation, at least for now. Lime-size hail, 70-mile-an-hour wind is the big threat there. From Follette down to Shattuck and Gage on the Oklahoma side. Golf ball size hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. The threat here in this middle supercell, as well as some rotation on that backside. And that one's not moving much. Let's see. Southeast at 20, maybe. This one's been our really nasty cell as of late here. Lime-size hail, 70-mile-an-hour winds. Canadian Texas is now in that. The tornado warned storm is back here along Highway 70. Kind of broad rotation showing up. Yeah, it's in this little notch right in here. That's where that would be. And not seeing a CC drop with that, so good sign that it's not on the ground likely right now. Looks like we did have a tornado report come in just a little bit ago from Perryton. Video of a tornado on the ground through social media. Maybe? Definitely had a pretty big lowering. Been under tornado warning. Yeah. 8. I don't even know how many times I've been under a tornado warning. I've been under a couple tornado emergencies too. Not counting the times I've gone out to see storms and chase them. I don't know how many tornado warnings. Yeah, Sean, Mario likely forming in that Eastern Pacific storm. 70% high chance the next 7 days, medium chance the next 2 days, probably the next 3 to 5. Just, I really haven't forecasted it, but just the gut kind of forecast in me says probably the next 3 to 5 days. Looking at another radar product on, or not radar product, but model. Yeah, maybe by late week, Thursday, Friday. And then this model really takes it over the weekend to really get going. But this model brings it up to hurricane status. So probably another hurricane in the Eastern Pacific with Mario, or what would become Mario. I'm just doing some really rough forecasting. I'm just looking at one model run. To put an actual forecast together, you want to look at different model runs and then different models and look at the ensemble. So that's the different model runs of each model. I'm just looking at one model run, but the models have, I think, handled East Pacific storms pretty good this year. So Yeah, if this model is showing it, and also the National Hurricane Center has a high chance they've looked at the ensembles, I'm sure too. So it'll probably be, looks like maybe a depression in the next 3 to 5 days, and then maybe a storm to a hurricane pretty quickly after that, in that 5 to 7 day time frame, according to this model. But generally moving away from the Mexican coastline. So we've lost 2 of our tornado warnings. The areas around Follett, again, not really showing much tornadic rotation with those. Mostly just now a cluster of 2 hail cores. And still showing those in the CC too. This one's a weird cell. Part of that is a right mover. It's also partly away from the radar and also blocked by this other cell. So yeah, the rotation not showing up as strongly here. May have peaked a little bit ago. They're going to add that warning back. Let's see. Yeah, there's still broad rotation in here, so they're going to add that back. Follett down to Higgins on the Texas Panhandle side of things. Let's see, that's eastern Lipscomb County. I probably, I don't know. This model just kind of shows the general structure of a hurricane forming. It doesn't really give me it's probably a little too far out for me to put a real good guess on a strength, but again, more of a guess than a forecast, but potentially more than a category 1. It looks, on this model run, it looks to be well structured, at least for a little while. And that seems to have been the trend in those East Pac storms. I don't believe many of them have just stopped at a category 1. But if Mario gets more of a threat to any of the Mexican coast, we'll put an actual forecast video out here in a couple days for it. Yeah, so it's still showing up south of Follett. That's winds going away from the radar, winds going towards the radar. Kind of a broad mezzo. It's in a weird spot. Another storm that's kind of in a weird spot for it, but this would be co-located with the hail core as well. So if there is a tornado, it'd be hail and rain wrapped. And then still showing the rotation on that other cell. So still 2 areas here, potentially with some rotation and a tornado potential working to the southeast. Take a look at this storm again. This one had a tornado earlier. This one still has a beefy mezzo on it. Again, we can see winds going away from the radar and towards the radar in the greens and reds. If that tightens, I wouldn't be surprised if that got a new tornado warning. And look at the hail core on that. That's a chunky hail core. A deep blue CC drop like that. That's some big hail. Lime size hail. Yeah, showing up there on the differential. So look at the less less high res, but definitely see those hail cores. And the VIL, the vertically integrated liquid, can also show the hail cores. Generally, if you're watching a local TV broadcast, a news broadcast, and they have like a hail tracker that like forecasts out hail cores, that's generally based on the VIL. If we get anything on our cameras, it's not going to be a great camera area still, but keep our eye on it. Keeping an eye on our other, I have another radar product off the side of my screen too, so I'm keeping an eye on our quad radar setup. This shows you reflectivity up here at the top, our velocity on the top right, and then it shows me the differential and the spectrum width on the bottom, but also gives me little hail tags. So this one, our supercell here, showing up with a max hail size of almost 3 inches here. And then let's see, the next one up showing a weakening hail core here. So that's good. Yeah, that storm is kind of getting squished between the two larger supercells. It looks like it's really lost its rotation. That was the one that kind of briefly tightened up here around Gaylord. That one, a diminishing hail threat, but if there's any hail that's up in that updraft, that can start to fall out now. So even if we're not seeing a big hail core, still this area is south of Darzet, I think that's how you say it. That could still be some sizable hail, even if it's not making new hail. And then our other cell near Follette, that one is still showing up pretty healthy here. 2.5 inch diameter hail showing up on our little scope. South at 14. So yeah, I do have some other radar products I can kind of look at too to help verify stuff if I'm not sure of one radar product. But yeah, still a broad mesocyclone, broad area of rotation showing up south of Follette. And then that other part of the cell, more of a wind threat coming into Shattuck, with also some chance of larger hail. Ping pong ball size hail. And then still half dollar size near Avard and Winoka. Here along Highway 281 and also Oklahoma Highway 14. maybe get some rumble of thunders here on the northern side of Oklahoma City Metro, especially up towards Guthrie. Looks like a dying cell. May pass through the Guthrie area, and then west of the Oklahoma City Metro, west of El Reno, out towards Hinton, Watonga, Greenfield. Oh, let me move the. There you go. You guys can see that more. I don't think any of this is going to get into the Oklahoma City immediate metro area. If it continues working in the south, it's going to slide to the south towards Hinton, Lokiba, Binger, and then that Guthrie area. Maybe get into the east side of the Oklahoma City metro. That held together towards Luther, Wellston, Langston, Guthrie. It really holds together towards McLeod and Hara, but again, non-severe storms. But generally in that central Oklahoma area, you might hear rumble thunder, brief heavy downpour, maybe some small hail, but I think, yeah, those cells probably not have much hail either, so. Yeah, we're really in a fairly small condensed area here of severe weather. West of Woodward, Oklahoma, south of Perryton, and areas around Canadian, up towards Higgins, Follette, and Shattuck is really what we're dealing with. Tennis ball size hail, 70-mile-an-hour wind. That's in this area here, west of Canadian, Texas. And still seeing a big, broad mesocyclone in this, so I think there's still a minimal tornado risk, but it's a large, broad meso, and it's just helping support a really big updraft with some really large hail. And actually, we can look at that too. Let's see. So taking this to the 3D, there's these hail cores. This one that the apple size hail potential is about 60,000 feet. So if you figure a standard kind of airliner, a commercial jet flies in that 30, 32, sometimes 35,000 foot range, this is going to be like double the height of a commercial airline. And then the tornadic cell near Follette, about 55,000 feet. So these are some really, really tall storms. Yeah, taking that to the 3D. It's absolutely incredible. And then you can see there are high clouds blowing off all the way through that Oklahoma City metro. But those blow-offs don't even compare to the actual updrafts. So that's how we're getting these really large hailstorms, because stuff like this here, if we got our thunderstorm, even if we have a little tornado down here, this hail core is going to be, hail develops here and then it starts to fall, and then it gets picked up by the updraft and goes back up in the updraft for another run where it accumulates another layer of ice, and then as that gets heavy enough, it starts to fall out again, and then it gets picked up by the updraft again, and then it accumulates another layer of ice. So the hail core just kind of go, with the hail within the hail core just kind of goes up and down for a while, and that's how it gets all these spikes and layers of hail and layers of ice, and then eventually gets to the size where even a really strong updraft can't support it, and it falls out as this big, chunky, spiky looking kind of big ball of ice. And yeah, that's why we're getting those today, because these are some really beefy storms. And then there's another view just on the reflectivity side of things. This is also how you can see lightning really far away. So if you're out here in the Texas Panhandle, you can probably see lightning from those tops of the storm from 60 plus miles in the distance, maybe even a little more. And they are going to add a new tornado warning for this cell along State Route Highway 70 here, Texas Highway 70, well south of Perryton. It's more west of Canadian Texas. Let's see. It'd be about 21 miles west of Canadian Texas. Clicking too much there. Yeah, there's a little inflow notch right in here. That's where it's funneling the inflow. Kind of a little appendage. And that's where you have our winds going away from the radar towards the radar. Way in the red, towards in the green. The tornado would sit right in that little couplet. And yeah, it's right in this little inflow notch, right in here. The storm has produced at least one tornado, I think, if not maybe a second one. We've had, I think, about, I don't know, just looking at social media, maybe 5, 6 tornadoes today. So just a really rough estimate. Other circulation isn't looking quite as healthy, but still seeing some broad rotation in here south of Follett, basically along Texas Highway 1454, north of Higgins. So Follett down to Higgins, still want you to stay in your tornado safe space. Yeah, that cell just isn't looking quite as healthy. It's kind of merged with this cell that was also tornado warned. So we really just have like a couple clusters of hail cores in here. We'll see if it can maintain a meso for much longer, but that may start to gust out and be more of a damaging wind threat if that can kind of cluster together like that. Interestingly, this is about where the models had a couple storms today. The models had kind of a big supercell here and a big supercell kind of in that general area in northeast Texas Panhandle. So check some updated modeling here real quick off to the side. Because earlier the models had more of a narrow window of for severe weather and for tornadoes, but they seem to be lasting a little bit more. The latest HRRR, that's a high resolution model, does start to diminish them as they get closer to that I-40 corridor. So that may be some good news here for areas like McLean over towards Elk City. Likely still going to get some thunderstorms, maybe even some severe storms. But at least according to this model and this run, yeah, it starts to kind of fade them out after sunset here. I will say that HRRR was not my favorite model this afternoon when I was looking at all the different convective allowing models. The HRRR kind of, I thought, underdid things a little bit compared to some of the other convective allowing models. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think all the models underdid what we had here, at least earlier, late afternoon into the evening. There was at one point, a pretty good cluster of supercells. Around 5:30, 5 o'clock, that's when things really got going. We got a tornado-warned storm. This was our original supercell. It produced a tornado, I think, in southern Kansas, northern Oklahoma. And that's when I started getting the stream frantically set up. But then it started to go from a southeast moving supercell to more of a south supercell. And then, yeah, it produced, I think, a second tornado somewhere in this area around Roston, north of Laverne. And then I think right around here, maybe the time we got on the live stream, it's kind of regrouping itself. But for a while, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 supercells in this area here in southern Kansas, northern Oklahoma, and the northeast Texas panhandle. So a few more than the models showed, which is interesting. And we can see how those south moving supercells have kind of merged and interacted with each other, especially in the last little bit here. It's starting to form more of a cluster than individual supercells. So some interesting dynamics there. And again, anyone watching from the Oklahoma City metro, Oklahoma City's quiet tonight. Maybe a rumble of thunder west and north of town. Same for Tulsa. Tulsa might get a brief shower or storm, but and no storms here. Threats diminished in Wichita. I don't think we've had any storms elsewhere there in Kansas. And then it looks like the severe threat's really diminishing here for now as well into Nebraska and South Dakota. We're keeping our eye on the Twin Cities. It looks like storms have behaved themselves. Still maybe a stronger storm up here near Grand Rapids, Minnesota. And if anyone knows anyone or is from Amarillo, the models don't really have these storms coming towards you guys, so they should stay in the eastern and northeast corner of the Texas Panhandle. But that is some decent rotation in here. I don't know if Jay, if you're still on. The one thing I also would recommend, if you're new to radar and looking at radar, I still do it pretty routinely, even though I've been looking at radar for years. But especially since I bounce around and I'm not looking at one radar all the time like you would if you're looking at your local area. Every now and then I just sometimes zoom out myself just to double check, make sure if my radar is here, if I'm looking at winds going towards the radar or away from the radar. You just gotta make sure, because if you accidentally clicked on the wrong radar site, you'll see the inverse. But yeah, there's the area of rotation. It's right in this area here. Texas Highway 70 and either a Texas highway or a county highway 283 out here about 20 miles west northwest of Canadian Texas. And probably about due west. Yeah, 22 miles due west of Canadian Texas. Tennis ball size hail, 70-mile-an-hour wind. I feel like this area, Shattuck, has been in a severe thunderstorm warning for quite a while. But continuing to cover this area, Gage, Shattuck, west of Fargo, they have dropped the hail size to quarters. So some good news there. And they dropped the tornado warning around that Follette area. Looks like the rotation is backing off. Still seeing some broad rotation in here, but again, they're mesocyclones with some large hail cores. They're going to have some broad rotation. It's just not imminently tornadic rotation at the moment, but still in here. This is one I'm just double checking again. Yeah, we're back up to the Dodge City radar. So yeah, wind going away from the radar and towards the radar. So still showing it, but not as impressive as it was. And you can see it's kind of co-located with the hail core, so that makes sense. That's the mesocyclone, broad rotating mesocyclone carrying some of that larger hail in it. But yeah, as we are going into the 9 o'clock hour Central Time, it does seem like we're getting a diminished severe threat for at least the tornadic threat. But still seeing a tornado warning here for Roberts County in the Panhandle. And then areas like Lipscomb, Roberts, Hemphill, and Ochiltree counties outside of that tornado warned area. Still warned here for considerable threats, 70-mile-an-hour winds, tennis ball size hail. Right now, it does look like most of that tennis ball size hail would be within the tornado warning. So hopefully everybody's taking their tornado safety measures, lowest level into your room, away from those doors and windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. That'll also protect you from wind-driven severe hail. Decently vigorous area of rotation. It's still kind of broad, but you can see the brighter greens and the brighter reds. So, yeah. May try to put down another tornado. This storm, I think, has put down at least one or two here, basically south of Perryton. And then I think we are losing the severe hail on this storm. Follette down to quarters. Some 70-mile-an-hour winds. Quarters there. Shattuck and Gage. Maybe a little more than quarters if there's anything still up in that updraft that could fall south of Follette, Texas. But those storms seem to be weakening. That's a good sign. Could be something in here that's a little bit of a suspicious CC lowering. can see there's not much CC lowering there before that. Some contamination here. There's hail in here with these blues and greens, but where the rotation is, not really seeing much here. On the last scan though, this has picked up some lower CC values. And that seems to be co-located with one of the tighter areas of circulation in here. So again, it's kind of a broad meso, but it may be putting down a tornado. There's kind of a weaker echo in here, so that could be some clear air contamination, but I'm not seeing it. That's probably a tornado on the ground with a debris signature right there. Would not be surprised if that is a CC drop on there. And see, it's gone now. I think that was. Probably a brief tornado right there. Still seeing good rotation. Oh, that's a good question. I'd have to look that up off the top of my head. The Ida last year we covered a significant tornado outbreak in I think it was Hurricane Ida, but let me double check. No, I was way wrong. Last year was Hurricane Beryl. We covered a bit of the landfall, but then the next day had a large tornado outbreak in like the Mississippi River Valley, Louisiana, Arkansas, and then it produced tornadoes even the next day in the Ohio Valley, and then the remnants, really non-tropical by that point, even produced tornadoes in western New York. So last year, I think that was one of the ones that produced tornadoes. We did not cover it. I was had some prior engagements, but the one hurricane that landfalled in Florida caused some pretty significant tornadoes, tropical tornadoes in Florida last, was it September, October? But I don't know off the top of my head which one has um, the most tornadoes. Hurricane. Most tornadoes produced by a hurricane. Let me see if I can search real quick and see if I got the answer for you. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, so I guess a reliable source, the Guinness Book of World Records, the most tornadoes spawned by a single hurricane was associated with Hurricane Ivan in 2004. Produced 120 tornadoes in an outbreak after making landfall. So potentially that one. There's been some others that have produced 80 to 100 tornadoes, it looks like. Um, so several have been pretty prolific tornado producers. Hurricane Helene last year produced about 30 tornadoes. Milton. Milton was the one that I was just mentioning in October last year, produced 45 tornadoes in Florida, and some of those were significant, like wedge-like tornadoes. They were pretty nasty. Looks like the total for Beryl that I mentioned that we covered kind of a 3-day tornado outbreak and severe weather outbreak for the remnants of Beryl last year, produced 68 tornadoes. So yeah, certainly they can be tornado producers. Trying to see if there's any confirmation of that CC lowering that we saw just a few minutes ago, but I don't see any. This is a pretty remote area of Texas here in the Texas Panhandle, and it looks like if there was a brief spin up, it's probably gusted out. Uh, some type of secondary spin showing up here. Keep an eye on that one, but let's see. It might be like an old mezzo that's still just rotating in there. This is the new mezzo for sure. It's a broad one. It is pretty beefy though. You can see it in the velocity and in the reflectivity though. Again, it's about 20 miles west of Canadian Texas in a very rural area in central Roberts County. Tornado and tennis ball size hail. It's about 14 miles northwest of Miami, Texas, and only moving at 10 miles an hour. Yeah, along Highway 60 here. So anyone basically north and west of Highway 60 from Miami up to Canadian Texas, you want to be in your tornado safe precautions. These cells here along the Oklahoma-Texas state line south of Follette near Shattuck and Gage are really just kind of raining themselves out at this point. Looks like still some hail in here, but maybe some gusty winds. Potentially up to 70, but I don't see much in here right now. If there is, it might be south of Follette. Ooh, my contact just went weird. I think it got kind of dry. But anyway, south of Follette, yeah, that's where we have maybe the chance of some sizable hail, gusty winds. Otherwise, we're losing a lot of the punch here in these storms in the rest of Oklahoma, so that's a good sign. I'm just kind of looking over all the radar products just to see if we just make sure we're not missing anything. But yeah, there's this area of tornado warning again. We're seeing it a few different ways here. They're going to extend out a new severe thunderstorm warning. This covers Miami, Texas, and areas there along Highway 60, south of Canadian, Texas. Basically, if you're east of Pampa and south of Canadian, Texas, you need to give this storm some space here and be on that lowest level interior room of a sturdy structure. Tennis ball size hail, 70-mile-an-hour wind, considerable threat. Wheeler, Gray, Roberts, and Hemp Hill counties in the Texas Panhandle. So a storm 9 miles north of Miami, Texas, moving south at 20 for the tennis ball size hail. There is still that the mezzo in here. Take a look at that again. It's going to be wrapped in the hail and rain right now too. So that's a dangerous storm and probably not going to get much verification unless there is a chaser or spotter that's literally right on a tornado in that mezzo. That's what's known as the bear's cage. This is going to be a big wall of wrapping rain curtains with hail embedded in it. It's just a nasty place that is really for the more experienced chaser slash maybe crazy. You got to kind of be experienced and a little weird to get into the bear's cage. Thought I saw it a little bit, but there is some lightning showing up on some of the cameras out of the Oklahoma City metro. This is looking northwest at some of those storms out past El Reno. Let's see. Yeah. There's storms out here south of Watonga, out west of El Reno near Hinton. Every now and then I've seen a lightning flash out of those storms. They're pretty much staying west of the metro, though. And then also storms north of Oklahoma City. Worked through the Guthrie area, approaching areas like Chandler. Still seeing the tornado warned area here around Roberts County, Texas. And again, we may have seen a brief spin up there. There was a CC drop for a scan or two. And this may be trying to tighten up again. So let's put this into motion and just see. Yeah, some interesting stuff going on right in here. Along Highway 283, that's a Texas county road, I think. But yeah, there may be another spin going on right in there. And generally that mesocyclone is about 11 miles northwest of Miami, Texas. So getting into a slightly more populated area. Not seeing a CC drop in that part of the circulation, but that is definitely tightened up again. We'd be looking right in here for a CC drop. Just checking my other radar products, see if we can get a better visual in there, but I don't think we do have one. Oh, there's some lightning there. Kind of a spider crawling lightning there on that Oklahoma camera. Oh, there may be a... Let's see if this updates here. Okay, they're going to extend that tornado warning here through that Miami area. Southeastern Roberts County. It's for a storm capable of producing a tornado about 8 miles northwest of Miami, Texas, moving south at 25. Miami and Codman, Texas are in the warning. Again, be in your tornado safe space. That's the lowest level into your room, away from those doors and windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. You have a basement, a storm shelter. That is certainly a better option. If you don't, at least go to that low level into your room. It's usually a bathroom, a hall closet. Especially if it's a bathroom, you can put a, get in the bathtub, you can put some pillows and blankets, cover you and protect you. Very broad mesocyclone, but it's tightened up at points and probably produced maybe a couple brief spin-ups. Yeah, see how that one was just a couple scans and tightened up and then has weakened. So this may be a very broad rotating meso, and at certain points it kind of tightens up, potentially puts down a tornado, and then that weakens as another kind of a merry-go-round of rotation with some intermittent tightening. Because yeah, this whole thing is spinning. There is your winds going away from the radar. Here's your winds going towards the radar. You can see kind of how large that is. And then this is your rear flank downdraft, the greens that extend out this way. So that's your surge of cool air that kind of drops in from the backside of a thunderstorm. Your rear flank downdraft will kind of wrap back down around this side, while your warm, moist air wraps into the storm from this side. And that little, essentially low pressure is what really focuses that tornadic circulation. So have some, usually some convergence right along, because there's also a forward flank downdraft that kind of wraps around, helps funnel some of those converging winds into that meso, and that's what then lifts the warm air up into the thunderstorm and eventually condenses and cools and drops back down the backside. That's a really, really rough, very quick, kind of dirty way of showing you what's going on. But that's what we see here. These are your rear flank winds. And this isn't going to show well because it's red on red, but these are your inflow winds coming in here. Again, I simplified it, very quick, rough, dirty sketch of it, but it's kind of roughly what you got. Good news is we've lost the severe warnings for that area around Follett. Still seeing some severe warnings here between Higgins and Shattuck on the Oklahoma side. Wouldn't be surprised if there's some small hail in these. Even up here now, east of Perryton, some of those storms could have some small hail. Particularly this one here along Highway 23. Yeah, seeing some good lightning showing up on that storm. That's not even really looking towards the storms. Yeah, I guess it's kind of looking up towards... The camera's like right here looking this way. So we're looking at what's remaining of the anvil, and that's where we're getting some lightning that's crawling along that anvil. But it's not even looking towards a more concentrated area of actual storms up here towards Hinton. It's going to be sliding down towards Binger, Gracemont, and Anadarko. Non-severe. Yeah, so again, still broad mezzo. Now the tightest area is kind of down here, closer to Miami. But in general, this whole thing is spinning. So it can tighten up in one area and then kind of relax and tighten up in another area. Yeah, so we're really watching this whole kind of area right in here. Still, this is a problem for Miami. Little farm community here along Highway 60. Really well-traveled highway, US 60. Tornadic circulation probably going to go just to your west if that continues to work its way to the south-southeast. The problem is here, this is a massive slug of some really large hail, and that's basically going to just hammer this community here. I'm looking off to the our quad screen here, and you can see the hail core showing up on the reflectivity. You can also see it showing up on the correlation coefficient, the bottom left of our screen, and then also here on the differential, those darker blues showing up there with the hail core, the green and blues on the CC, the pink and purple colors here on the reflectivity, and here on our main screen here in these purple colors here on our reflectivity too. So this is going to be potentially a very devastating hailstorm for that community with some tennis ball size hail. If you're in Miami, hopefully you're taking your tornado safety measures and in that lowest level into your room anyway. But if you aren't, you need to be in a sturdy structure, away from windows, away from skylights, and really this is going to be blowing in from the north, so away from those north facing walls as well if you can. But yeah, this is a massive slug of hail just headed right into this area here. And then there's going to be 60 has a lot of truck traffic, a lot of travel. So it's not quite a interstate, but it's a really well-traveled highway, especially in this part of Texas to get into Pampa and then all the way down into Amarillo. So concerning that there's people traveling on here that may not know there's a giant, I mean, they obviously see the storm, but they may not know how severe that storm is with the tornadic potential and also just the absolutely large hail. Tennis ball size, even apple size could still be a potential there. And we called it earlier that there was some upscaling thunderstorms to the east of Perryton. Those are now going to get a $0.5 size hail warning, especially a couple cores in here could have some of that larger hail. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get another warning out of this storm here around Higgins, still showing some hail core in that area as well. Good news is it's not showing much circulation anymore. That was a tornado warned supercell earlier, but now non-tornadic. And then, interestingly, we do have severe threat again tomorrow. It'd be interesting. Shifts a little bit to the west, parts of eastern Colorado, eastern New Mexico, most of the Texas Panhandle, the Oklahoma Panhandle, and then western Kansas. Right now, a marginal risk. Just glancing at the models, it looks like storms kind of fire into the high plains of Colorado, eastern New Mexico, and then work to the southeast across western Kansas, maybe into that Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle area on this model run as they kind of work southeast. And there, we mentioned it just a few minutes ago that that area is going to get a new warning. Pattern recognition. That's the big key to radar. As we were talking earlier, yeah, that area definitely upscaling a little bit. $0.5 size hail just to the west of Higgins. 60-mile-an-hour winds along Highway 60 there. Still seeing a little rotation showing up on that that area just on the southern flank of this near Coburn. So between Higgins and Coburn, keep an eye on that storm. That one was a supercell earlier. This one still has a broad mezzo focused in a little bit here along Highway 2699 and then Farm Road 282, just north of Codman and northwest of Miami. Here in the Texas Panhandle, some very large hail about to get into the Highway 60 corridor from areas around Codman, but especially over towards Miami. That's going to be just north of town along Farm Road 283 and also Farm Road 282. That's also Quarter Horse Road. If you're in this area, that is areas in southeastern Roberts County. Yeah, still a south-moving supercell. They tend to be less tornadic, but we've had a few south-moving supercells produce a few tornadoes. So they've really all been south movers that have produced tornadoes today. So Yeah, and they happen. They tend to be on the weaker side. Just checking, I think. Thought I saw a little bug, but maybe it was just, maybe it wasn't. Yeah, there is some rotation in there too, west of Higgins. That is actually flaring up. Not in much rotation, but the hail core has come up quite a bit in the last few minutes. You can see how the colors have changed there from the reds and purples to more purple and brighter purple and pink colors. So that is an upscaling hail core with some rotation in here as well. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Maybe a second life there for that supercell that was originally tornado warned here around Gage, or sorry, around Follett. The storm here around Gage has really died off. No severe thunderstorm warnings actually in all of Oklahoma right now. So all of our severe warnings are in the Texas Panhandle. I shouldn't say that. There is a tiny piece of Beaver County, Oklahoma, the very southern part right along the Texas Panhandle that is in that warning east of Perryton. Yeah, that's north and east of Perryton, that line of storms there with some hail in it, embedded hail and some gusty winds. You can see this mezzo still working to the south. Kind of a weird look to it. Keep an eye on all those storms there in our quad radar setup. And yeah, still seeing some decent lightning out of that cell west of Oklahoma City. Officially, we've had some spotter reports of 2-inch hail. We've had some reports, though, noted in the warnings of 3-inch hail reported by the public. They just haven't been put into this spotter network reporting system. So, yeah, I think we've had verified basically everything from this watch area. We've had large to very large hail, 2 inches in diameter plus. We've had scattered damaging winds in that 70 to 80 mile an hour range at times. And we've also had at least a handful of tornadoes. I think potentially a half dozen to 6 or 7, something like that. Just kind of rough counting the confirmed tornadoes from spotters. And also I think we've also seen the CC drop once or twice. So yeah, interesting night for sure. A very condensed area in the central and southern plains here, but a pretty impactful localized severe weather event. Which my goal on the channel, if you're new here, like and subscribe, click that bell icon, get notifications when we go live, when we post forecast videos. We also post a daily kind of blog style weather briefing in the mornings, usually kind of mid-morning. But yeah, like and subscribe, click that bell icon, and yeah, had a couple. It's been a very quiet month for large scale severe weather events, but I've also wanted to cover some of the smaller localized severe weather events and just had a couple prearranged events and things that just got in the way of some of those smaller events. The one I was really mad about was the earlier last week was the Wichita. There's a big hailstorm that came through kind of Wichita, and if I was able to move the schedule around, I would have covered that one, as well as the one in the Northeast the other day. But I had something set up over a month in advance, and just very important. But otherwise, I would have covered the Northeast severe weather that happened on over the weekend. couple tornadoes, I believe. We've I'll have to double check, but I think they confirmed maybe 2 or 3 tornadoes in the Northeast in Massachusetts and the surrounding areas. Yeah, they've upped that to lime size hail just west of Higgins, Texas, on the Oklahoma-Texas state line there. That's down towards Coburn. That's some lime size hail. Again, you want to be in a sturdy structure, away from windows, away from doors and skylights, and hunker down there for some lime sized hail. Although they're generally weakening, they're weakening very slowly. But if you're down here on the I-40 corridor, McLean, Texas, Shamrock, Wheeler, you have some time. You're not in a warning yet. I would go, if I was out here, I would go make sure my car was hunkered down in a, carport, garage, that sort of thing, because there's a potential that some of these clusters of storms and supercells do make their way down to the I-40 corridor this evening. And yeah, areas McLean, Shamrock, even the areas like Eric on the Oklahoma side, Sayre, just along I-40. To be safe, even Elk City, I think it's mostly going to be to the west of Elk City, at least on the current path. But yeah, I would definitely put my car tucked away if I was down here along the I-40 corridor. Still seeing a lot of lightning out of that OKC camera. Interesting. Some even cloud to ground lightning. And that was probably the flash or two we just saw there, just west of Calumet. A little bit more concentrated area of storms down here, Hinton down towards Lakiba. Again, that's moving south-southeast, so it's going to skip the populated areas of OKC, but potentially down here towards Anadarko, Gracemont, Chickasha, Ninnekah, Cyril. Could get a punchy storm, non-severe, at least right now, but a loud storm. It's going to be loud. There's a lot of lightning with that little cell right there. Back to our tornado warning storm. Still seeing that rotation broadly in here. Farm Road 282, just north of Highway 60, near the Codman, Texas area. And yeah, this between Codman and Miami, this is some really big hail right in here. It's basically just starting to cross Highway 60, maybe just west of the community of Miami. So some of the largest hail probably right in here along Highway Farm Road 282 up towards Farm Road 283. That's some large hail. And then this area here also has some larger hail. Texas Highway 2699. The rotation has kind of broadened. It stayed still a large spinning mezzo, but it hasn't concentrated in the last few minutes. So they did trim the warning up, so that's good. Little rotation still showing up there. Highway 60 west of Higgins near Coburn. But yeah, this is now the strongest supercell here in this cluster. It has transitioned from out of those storms in Oklahoma to this cell here in the Texas Panhandle. That is a beefy cell. Again, the tornado threat may start to die down. At least the model showed it would. So even if the tornado threat dies down, areas out ahead of this, Mobity, Wheeler, McLean, Shamrock. You have a little time out here to get your things hunkered down, the car, the trampoline, those kind of things, lawn chairs on your patio, that type of stuff. But also just have your safety plan ready to go. Not just your tornado safety plan, have your large hail safety plan. It's usually pretty similar to a tornado, but you might not have to cover yourself with pillows depending on the structure that you're in. But you want to be away from the doors and windows, skylights, and glass, and you want to be on a low level into your room. You want to be in a sturdy structure. A temporary structure isn't going to cut it. Wind-blown large hail can just shred through temporary structures, and we're talking, potentially tennis balls to apple-size hail at potentially 70 to 80 miles an hour. So you don't want to deal with that in a temporary structure. So anywhere out ahead of this, again, not a warning yet, but definitely pay attention to this storm. Another community out here at LaFours. I'm just kind of generally giving some heads up here. Let's see, 25. I want to make it kind of as wide as we can. There we go. That'll work. That's going to put it into areas like Laketon in about 20 minutes. Mobity, about 43. Heaton in about 15 minutes. You guys are in that severe thunderstorm polygon. And then areas here, Kellerville, about 52. Pecan, about 70. And then again, if it holds together around about an hour and a half, about 85, 90 minutes down to the areas around Shamrock. So that gives you guys some time here along the I-40 corridor. That'd be similar for McLean in that 80, 85 minute range. Wheeler, let's see, 43, 84. Wheeler, probably about 50 minutes to an hour. Kind of that time frame for Wheeler. Yeah, Kellerville, about 51. So yeah, 50, 55, 60 towards this area here around Wheeler. Again, that's if that holds together. May not be tornadic, but will likely have large hail, as that hail core has some very large hail in it still. And a pretty good circulation showing up again. Tightening area of circulation in that inflow notch right in there. So potentially could have a tornado imminent. This would be a problem. It's right near Codman. So just north of Codman, here along Farm Road 282, and then Codman Lane, north of Highway 60 here. This is west of Miami. And again, Codman, you guys are right in this little inflow notch right in here. This is your warm, moist inflow feeding in here. Cooler air on the rear flank with some hail wrapping into the rear flank here. So this is also some wind-driven hail coming out that way too on the rear flank. Some wind-driven hail that way. Yeah, your circulation would be just in here. And now it loosened up just a little bit. It's not showing up as tightly. But yeah, that's the general area we're watching for that tornadic circulation. Wow, what a night. The models really kind of underdid this a little bit, honestly. They showed a very brief window of tornadic potential of an all hazards threat, but this has gone on way longer than the models kind of projected earlier the last couple days. Let's see. Wow, earlier there's a big lowering in that Shattuck area. That storm has collapsed. There's been some incredible storm chasing shots of some of these cells. We're posting those to our X account, WeatherCastUSA there, WXCastUSA. Obviously can't share copyrighted work on the stream, but we can repost and retweet. So yeah, some chasers out there with some absolutely incredible structure shots. Just some massive UFO style supercell looks. They've upped the hail here. They've upped the hail for 3-inch diameter apple size hail, and a new tornado warning out for areas east of Pampa. This is going to be northeastern Gray and then south central Roberts counties in the Texas Panhandle. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near Codman, or actually, sorry, located over Codman, and that's moving to the south at 15 miles an hour. It's about 7 miles southwest of Miami. And then our quad radar with its detector is also detecting a tornado vortex signature. It's probably that area of rotation that we just saw just a few minutes ago that peaked near Codman. Yeah, right in here. I think that's when it maybe did a quick spin. Right in there. It tries to tighten up and then it very quickly broadens back out. So we'll continue to watch that. Apple size hail continuing here. East of Pampa towards LaFours. Luckily, Pampa just kind of cuts off. There's not really like a suburb east of Pampa, but right here at the bend at US 60, if you're anywhere to the east of that bend, County Road 12, out here towards Heaton, along State Highway 152 from Heaton over to Laketon, and then down towards Wesco, LaFours. We're getting into a little bit more populated area, and that'll continue as we get towards that Highway 40 corridor. So a dangerous situation there as we get slightly more populated. This has really just kind of stayed on this track to the following Highway 70 from the areas around Perryton. And maybe one good news, I think this little community, Miami, Texas, has maybe missed the worst hail. But look at that. If you're in Codman, you're in that little inflow notch. So not only do you have a tornado chance, but that is some massive hail that's going to be coming. And there's no way around it. I don't think Codman's going to miss that at all. That's going to be a big problem. And this hail is also crossing US 60 to the southwest of Miami, Texas. So hopefully no one's driving into that. That's some dangerous driving on 60 right now, basically between Miami and east of Pampa. You do not want to drive that. We'll also have to see, there are a couple of showers and storms out in front over that area around LaFours. to see what kind of interaction that does. This supercell may try to just ingest some of these little showers and storms that may temporarily or permanently weaken the mesocyclone, the tornadic mesocyclone. So we'll have to see on that one. The other supercell is now south of US 60 and just southwest of Higgins, Texas, on the Oklahoma-Texas border, with some lime-sized hail in here south of Coburn, approaching areas Dreyfus, Texas. And then half dollars still showing up in these cluster of cells near Perryton. So keep an eye on those. Just another shot out of Oklahoma City, seeing if we can see this storm. This is basically at the airport. Yeah, there's the airport right here. So let's see if we can see the lightning out of that storm. It's west of Oklahoma City, around Binger, Gracemont, Anadarko. Again, non-severe, but has been producing some decent amount of lightning. So you can see some of these little cell interactions. This one's already starting to get incorporated into the larger parent supercell. We still have some other showers and storms. They're kind of drifting out ahead of this. Again, yeah, if I'm betting, they're probably going to get incorporated into this big, massive supercell. But those may have started to disturb some of the inflow here. Just on the last scan, literally the last scan, the velocities have come down quite significantly on the tornadic part of this circulation. Yeah, that's interesting. You can also see there's a little bit of outflow on this storm. Basically off the rear flank, extends, now that we're getting a little closer to the radar, extends to the northwest. That's going to bring at least a brief gust or two into the Pampa area. But yeah, this may be starting to get outflow dominant. We'll have to see if that continues, if that trend. There still is a potential, though, of a tornadic circulation, essentially where that outflow connects into the rear flank downdraft, still funneling the warm, moist air out in front. But if we see this start to surge, a more concentrated area of outflow out past that area of circulation, that's where we would really kind of cut off that tornadic potential. This is our only tornado warned storm right now. Again, that's for Gray and Roberts counties in the Texas Panhandle. Radar indicated rotation and then apple size hail. That is going to be in this area right here near Codman. So very small community out here, but that is some very, very devastating hail. If that was in a major metro, that could be $1 billion disaster. That's how big that type of hail can do some damage. And then lime-size hail south of Higgins, still watching that sell. A little bit of rotation on that earlier. $half size near Perryton, especially now east of Perryton. Check that one briefly. It's really hard to see. It's right on the edge of the radars. Yeah, kind of on both radars, but still potentially some rotation in there south of Higgins. And let's just double check. Everything's behaving themselves up here. There's a potential for some isolated severe weather in the upper Midwest today. Some pretty beefy storms still going here in the UP, or the upper portion of Minnesota, near Grand Rapids out towards Silver Bay, north of Duluth. There are some storms in the UP, but not looking very strong right now. And very quickly, we'll check Florida. We've had a stalled frontal boundary draped across the Florida peninsula with several disturbances kind of riding along that frontal boundary. And each one has kind of kicked off basically rounds of storms as it crosses the Florida peninsula. So it looks like another one, a little disturbance crossing, basically will make their way across Florida tonight and tomorrow. So kind of more of the same across the Florida peninsula. We talked earlier, I don't know if you guys are still on. Sean was talking earlier. We had a big, long look at what'll probably be Mario in the next, starting kind of in the next 3 to 5 days, towards the end of the week, likely getting further developed here over the next 7 days, generally moving to the west northwest. So hopefully minimal impacts, direct impacts for the southwest coast of Mexico. But we'll keep our eye on that one. If things get interesting, we'll put a video out or a live stream or something like that. And then also watching Kiko, now a Category 1 storm, now to a minimal Category 1 storm. The pressure is almost up to just a normal pressure at sea level. And then the wind speed's at 75 miles an hour. The good news is this is going to pass well to the north and east of Hawaii. So by a couple hundred miles at least. So the direct impacts are going to be minimal. You can see the wind field there. Tropical storm force winds. I extend out about 100 miles, maybe a little more on the east side, about 120 miles on the east side, but only about 43 miles, 40 to 50 miles on the west side. So good news for Hawaii, you're on the west side, less of a wind impact. And then hurricane force winds are even smaller within that. So Hawaii, not really direct threats, but the wind driven waves, that is going to be a big impact. High surf, very strong rip currents, potentially deadly surf and rip currents. So, and stronger on the north and east facing beaches. So if you do have interests in Hawaii, so you want to swim at the guarded beaches, and if you can, swim not on the north and east side. Some of this long range moisture is interesting for Kiko. As you can see, it kind of just eventually just crumbles out here in the middle of the Pacific. But interestingly, some of the models took some of the remnant moisture, actually pulled it back into the northwest, into Canada and things. So not a hurricane or anything like that, but just interesting how moisture gets funneled around. And hurricanes themselves are generally they're part of the energy transfer between the poles and the equatorial regions. So they take a lot of energy out of the poles and the heat energy in the tropical waters and tropical regions and kind of redistribute it to the pole areas and the higher latitudes. So that makes sense that some of that moisture gets pulled off into the Pacific Northwest. I was going to say, yeah, this is not looking as healthy right now, which I think we kind of called earlier. It's starting to get disturbed by these little showers and storms out in front. The hail core has come down just a little bit here in the last little bit. Still have this pretty pronounced inflow notch, but it does not look as punchy as it did earlier. We still have some broad rotation in here. Still the old meso still showing up a little bit in there too. But that is back in the hail core. And that does look like it's come down a little bit too. So that's a good sign. The newest severe thunderstorm warning here out of the National Weather Service Amarillo for northeastern Gray and southeastern Roberts counties. It's going to be for the cell near Codman, moving south at 20. And they have dropped that hail down to 2-inch diameter hail. And they actually just replaced that whole thing with, they replaced the tornado warning. So no more tornado warning, but still a hail threat coming into areas here east of Pampa, Codman, now south of Miami. Yeah, pretty much south of Miami. East of Pampa along Highway 152, Heaton, Laketon, down towards Wesco, LaForce, Danforth, back. All those areas, you guys need to basically still treat this similar to a tornado warning with some very large wind-driven hail. But I think that'll wrap it up. Looks like as the models kind of did show, after sunset, we should get a diminished severe weather threat. So still, if you're in this area, there's another 2 hours of severe thunderstorms potentially in here in the Texas Panhandle, extreme western Oklahoma, northwestern Oklahoma. Again, large hail is going to be the primary threat for the remaining severe thunderstorms. An isolated tornado is possible still, but I think we're losing that tornado threat fairly quickly after dark now. But yeah, still potentially some larger hail in here, south of Higgins, even this little cell north and west of Canadian again. And then this little cluster here near Perryton. And then certainly our big boy supercell here still going. It's going to have to kind of take these little cells into it, so it's going to reorganize some. It may permanently decrease the tornado threat. It may try to spin again if it can kind of reorganize with those cells out of the way. But again, if you're on the I-40 corridor, Shamrock, McLean, Groom, even over towards Eric on the Oklahoma side of things, you got a little bit of time to put the cars in the garage. Good news here for areas in Oklahoma. This has been more of a south mover, so I think it's turned even more south. So even Shamrock might miss this particular supercell. More of an issue for McLean right now. Taking that out at 20 to the south. LaFour's about 20 minutes. And then McLean about 60 minutes. So about an hour to the I-40 corridor. Allen Reed, basically anywhere along I-40 here around McLean, especially east to Groom, west to Shamrock. Really needs to keep an eye on that storm. And you got about an hour to hunker down and get the cars taken care of and get things put away. Make sure the pets aren't outside. That kind of stuff. But yeah, this is diminishing just in the time we were talking here. So we'll see. It might not even make it down as severe, but still prepare anyway for a pretty strong hailstorm, just in case it does still show the larger hail down to the I-40 corridor. So thanks for joining us. Any new subscribers, thanks for joining our community. As you can see from the chat, we have a really cool chat, a really cool weather-driven community. A lot of people want to learn more about weather. A lot of people want to reduce their storm anxiety. So definitely give us a like and subscribe, and feel free to ask questions in the chat. I love when we get weather questions. We've had a lot of weather questions today. So I try to kind of get to chat, especially when it's not as busy or between when we've covered a really strong cell pretty comprehensively. Then I'll try and answer some chat questions. And so, yeah, I appreciate everybody today. Really awesome in the chat. And we'll see you on the next severe weather event. Look for a forecast video. I haven't put one out in a while just because the weather's been so calm. We haven't had many large scale weather features. And then a couple times I had just some conflicts of interest and couldn't get one out. But there's some signs of some pattern changes. So this fall-like pattern may not last. It's kind of been a false fall. And I think the middle to late parts of September are going to probably bring back summer for some areas. And that'll also then usher in another round of severe chances looking further out. So we'll get a forecast video out on those kind of details, those kind of mid-range details. And then, yeah, potentially it could be on tomorrow if tomorrow's severe weather looks kind of like today's. Right now, it may be in a broader area, but it may be a little less punchy just based on the models. But models do change, especially when they get new day one data. So we'll see if any day one updates change the model forecast. But whether we're on or not, just have multiple ways to get warnings. Make sure you follow other reputable sources for weather, including your local weather stations, your news stations. They're always great sources. And they know your community more than YouTubers do. So definitely make sure you follow those reputable media sources. And then also a good source, obviously, your local National Weather Service office is a great resource as well. So we'll see. Check out our blog in the morning. We'll have a weather brief. If there are any big changes to the severe weather outlook, we'll have that as part of that. And yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. And if you're in this area in Northeast Texas or the Northeast Texas Panhandle, Western Oklahoma, definitely have multiple ways to get warnings, like a NOAA weather radio. If you do want to go to bed, make sure your cell phone alerts are turned on and on the noise mode, and make sure your NOAA weather radio is charged and ready to go. But yeah, take it easy tonight. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks.